Chief and General Manager of the Office of Emergency Management, Matthew Pegg. Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Brad, and good afternoon. The City, as you know, has been working non-stop through the Emergency Operations Centre to help prepare for the opening of more retailers. Today, Toronto Public Health and the City will be releasing a list of recommendations to businesses to help them as they reopen. I was on a call today with the Toronto Association of Business Improvement Areas Executive Director John Carew to discuss these recommendations, and I want to thank Tabia and all of the BIAs across our city for working with us to help us get through this process. In a very short period of time, we have put together these recommendations and found a way to implement this quickly, and I want to extend my thanks as well to the city divisions and all of those who worked so hard to get us to where we are. I'm very much of the view that businesses themselves can be and should be the leaders in ensuring that these reopening steps respect and advance our public health goals as reflected in the materials coming from Toronto Public Health and as will be discussed today as well by the Medical Officer of Health. All this is happening as a consequence of the province of Ontario beginning to allow the reopening of non-essential retail stores with street entrances for curbside pickup starting on Monday. This follows provincial changes allowing garden centres to open in-store customers today and hardware stores to open their doors tomorrow, provided they operate under the same guidelines that grocery stores and pharmacies have been following throughout the period of the pandemic. We know some retailers will open for curbside pickup because it works for their businesses, while others won't because it isn't financially or practically viable for them. We want to restart our city and see our economy come back strong. From the beginning, I have supported the carefully phased reopening, which was to follow, according to the Ontario framework, 2 to 4 weeks of improved health numbers. As we await that period of consistent improved results, this curbside initiative seems sensible and appropriate, subject to straightforward recommendations as to how to do it and a disciplined, intelligent approach both by businesses and by individual consumers. It is critical that the opening of more businesses and shops is done in a safe way that doesn't allow for any further spread of this deadly virus. Much of that, as always has been the case, will rely on individual residents continuing continuing to do the right thing and keeping their distance from others. And it will absolutely rely on businesses continuing to do the right thing and following the provincial regulations and public health recommendations. We've come too far together to endure any setbacks, and if we all work together by following the advice of our health professionals and planning for this reopening, I'm confident that we can go about it safely and continue moving forward on our recovery. I don't want to see the doors of our businesses open only to have to watch them close again due to the virus spreading. I can't bear the thought of everybody out across the city having gone through all that everybody's been through over the last 8 weeks, all the sacrifice and the pain, to see us end up back in a shutdown again because we didn't take enough care and demonstrate enough personal responsibility to get the reopening right. It is critically important that every business owner who plans to open also plan to adjust how they normally operate their business so that we can prevent the spread of COVID-19. And I'm confident that the vast majority of businesses will do so because they want to protect their employees and their customers and themselves and their businesses. These are not normal times, and making sure that things are put in place that support physical distancing and ensuring that staff and customers know what to do will go a long way in helping stores remain open for business. I have seen how effective the businesses which were permitted to remain open during the emergency have been at ensuring physical distancing, health and safety as well. And I hope that other businesses will learn from those excellent and fairly straightforward examples. In April, the City of Toronto launched Curb-TO to identify sidewalk hotspots and pinch points to help reduce sidewalk crowding in front of essential businesses and support increased demand for pickup and delivery services. More than 20 Curb-TO locations have already been installed, with 25 more being installed today, and staff already have plans for more than 100 hotspots, many of those to be selected from among the 179 requests for hotspot designations received so far from across the city. And this program will be expanded to support additional retail locations throughout Toronto to help keep people safe. I strongly encourage all businesses that are permitted to open to closely follow the advice and the guidance of Toronto public health experts by ensuring physical distancing measures are in place and to diligently plan for the reopening in advance so they keep their employees and customers safe and prevent any further spread of COVID-19. We have made such good progress. We began to take unprecedented action in March. We did everything we could do as a city government and urged the Ontario government to do everything it could under its powers to stop the spread of this deadly virus and to save lives. The vast majority of Toronto residents understood what had to be done and did the right thing. And here we are now in May. Thanks to people staying at home and keeping their distance, thanks to restaurants and bars closing their doors at huge sacrifice except for takeout, thanks to non-essential businesses closing, and thanks to the cancellation of large gatherings and events, we have reason for cautious optimism today, and we have some businesses being able to reopen on Monday or over the weekend, at least in part. I know it's not been easy for people. These are tough times. There's no other way to describe it. The stark job numbers released today show how many people have been left out of work, have paid a huge price for this health pandemic, and their family stories and the stories of their businesses closing their doors forever are nothing less than heartbreaking. And I know it is frustrating to know that we have still quite a ways to go before we have vanquished COVID-19. But our collective effort so far and going forward will give us those weeks of improved numbers required by Premier Ford's plan so that we can get to the hope and promise represented by the first phase of the reopening. Personal responsibility will continue to be the key. So please make sure you keep your distance at least 2 meters or 6 feet from others when you are out and about. I know people can do this because they want to help us to conquer COVID-19, because they've shown that they know how to do it from past episodes over the past few weeks, and because they want to get through this. They don't want what we've gone through over the last 8 weeks to be in vain. I'm so proud of how the vast majority of people across the city have responded to this emergency. While we are physically apart, and we have been, for the most part, staying physically apart, I believe that neighbours and neighbourhoods and different groups across the city have actually grown closer together than ever before. People understood the threat of COVID-19 and took action to help us protect the health of the city and to save lives. We have saved hundreds of lives, maybe more, based on the projections that we saw early on in this emergency. We've helped thousands more who needed help to get through this crisis. And because of these ongoing efforts, supported by the residents of Toronto, I am confident, I continue to be confident, as I have been throughout, that the city will come back stronger than ever before. Now, while on the subject of business, I want to reiterate something that I've been saying for some time, but it needs to be repeated, unfortunately. Whether it's in Phase 1 or during the curbside pickup time that we're just entering now, none of that will be of any benefit to a business which has closed its doors for good. I have been informed this week repeatedly that there are still too many commercial landlords out there who are just refusing to explore or discuss the payment of rent by their shop and business tenants, or refusing or not interested in making application under the federal provincial commercial rent assistance program. I realize some of the initial criteria in that program made it less attractive for some landlords to apply, but my understanding is that changes to bring that program more into conformity with what people need are under consideration. But the real bottom line is this. All commercial landlords should be working out some arrangement to defer rent or otherwise work out something reasonable with their small business tenants. This is not only the right thing to do, but it also makes good business sense. Because if they know, the landlords, that the shop or tenant who is their tenant today will otherwise close for good, then that landlord will have a vacant property on their hands at a time when we already have far too many of those. So it just makes good business sense to make some kind of a deal. If more landlords don't start doing the right thing, I believe the Ford government will have no alternative but to ban commercial evictions, as I have been urging them to do for several weeks now, at least during the period of the emergency. Turning to a much happier subject in conclusion, this weekend, of course, is Mother's Day weekend. I want to wish a very happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers in our city. And I know Dr. Davila will have advice encouraging people who don't live with their mothers or grandmothers to find ways to celebrate virtually and to respect physical distancing and the fact that some, not all, of these people are in some of the more vulnerable age groups. I know it's been hard for so many people, myself included, who haven't been able to physically give a hug to their mums over the course of this health emergency. If you'd asked me 6 weeks ago if I thought that I would be engaged in Zoom calls with my mother online, I would have said that was a highly unlikely proposition, but it has happened. My advice is to all of you out there, please do whatever you can, whether it's FaceTime or Zoom or Skype or just dropping off some flowers, to let your mom know you love her and appreciate all she has done for you. But drop off flowers in the way that conforms with the rules and that is in the best interest of your mother or grandmother's health. I know many people have already made plans that include physical distancing so that they don't put their mom or their grandmother or their great-grandmother or other loved ones at risk. And I thank them for being so responsible and for making one more sacrifice in the fight against COVID-19. And one more message. It's to all the kids out there, and I know because I hear about my children and grandchildren causing some trouble. They've been at home with their mums and dads, many of the kids out there, for the last 8 weeks, and I would just suggest you should be extra good to your mums in particular and to your grandmothers, and to thank them for their nonstop patience with you over these weeks when you've been cooped up together throughout the pandemic. They've been keeping you safe and entertained and making you do your online homework, and they should be thanked for that by your good behavior over the course of the weekend. I know that you're going to do that anyway. All kids, of course, behave that way at all times, but a little reminder never hurts. And on that note, I will ask Dr. Davila if she can offer her report for today.
Thank you, Mayor Tory, and good afternoon, everyone. For today's update, there are a total of 180 new COVID-19 infections, and to date, 4,717 who have recovered. As shared yesterday, my team updates our local data regularly with daily online updates. I encourage you to visit our website for more details. By way of update, I also wanted to share that I recently learned that a man in his 60s who was a personal support worker sadly died on May the 6th. The individual was a personal support worker who worked for an agency serving clients in a local Toronto Community Housing Corporation building. My team has reviewed the building's infection prevention and control protocols and has confirmed that their existing protocols not only meet but exceed current standards. On behalf of my team, I extend sincerest condolences to all those who have lost loved ones to COVID-19. These past months, as the Mayor has just said, have certainly been difficult for all of us. And as I reflected on my updates to you, I wanted to end this week on a positive note. When we face challenges, I believe that it is important to remember that there is always hope and to look for inspiration. This can come in many forms, and sometimes it is in the quiet leaders and heroes who are right in front of us. Over the past weeks, I've observed many forms of inspiration in our city. We've witnessed our city coming together and people supporting each other during these very difficult and unprecedented times. These quiet acts of leadership and small and large acts of kindness are making a difference in our community, and it truly makes me proud to be a Torontonian. I'd like to end this week by taking a moment to thank some of these people. First, I would like to extend a special thank you to every person in our community who is working hard to keep our city clean during this pandemic. Whether you're working in a hospital, shelter, long-term care home, on public transit, or in a grocery store, on behalf of my team and our whole city, thank you for your dedication. There are also many meaningful examples of people and organizations across our city rising to the challenge under these stressful circumstances and demonstrating positive leadership in our community. For example, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, who's transformed Scotiabank Arena into a giant kitchen to prepare thousands of meals for our community. Toronto Public Library branches have opened their doors to function as distribution sites for food banks, making local food access easier for those in need. People have built free pantries on their lawns to offer non-perishable free food for those in need. Restaurants are making meals for frontline workers who may not have time to shop or to cook. Musicians have been playing outside long-term care homes to bring joy to residents. And music schools across our city are offering free live-streamed music classes for children on their social media channels. Gyms and fitness studios have been offering free or pay-what-you-can classes on social media. And the Toronto Zoo has brought the zoo to you by live-streaming many animals on their website. Thank you as well to everyone who unites at 7:30 each night on their balconies and front porches to say thank you to our frontline workers. This daily gesture is a powerful show of community spirit and support, and for this, I say thank you. I've been asked to provide an update on our public health recommendations for residents and businesses as we begin to open curbside pickup on Monday. I know that many people in our city are looking forward to this small step towards recovery. To help keep our community safe, we strongly recommend that all participating stores promote physical distancing as much as possible. More details on this are available on our website. I've also been asked to provide advice on whether or not people should wear masks, especially as retail begins to open in our city. First and foremost, the best thing you can do to protect yourself against COVID-19 is to wash your hands frequently, avoid touching your face as much as possible, and maintain a physical distance of 2 meters from others. However, in a retail environment, when physical distancing cannot be maintained and you are in close contact with others, a cloth mask or face covering is strongly recommended to keep your germs from spreading to others, even if you have no symptoms. And of course, last but not least, with Mother's Day this weekend, I would like to close by saying Happy Mother's Day and to offer my sincere thanks to all mothers, mothers-to-be, and mother figures in our city. I know that many of us will find it difficult not to visit with family this weekend, but I encourage you to find creative ways to stay connected virtually and by phone. For me, I plan on ordering local takeout and dropping some off to my mom, and then we'll enjoy Mother's Day brunch with her virtually over FaceTime. So as we head into this weekend, please continue to stay safe by practicing physical distancing when you go outside, and please continue to take care of each other. I'll now hand it over to Chief Pegg for his remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Davila. And before I begin my remarks, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't add one name or one organization to the list of people you thanked, and that is to you and to the entire Toronto Public Health team, who I can personally attest to the fact work literally nonstop to lead and guide us through this and work tirelessly to end the spread of COVID-19 in our community. So you can add that one to your list because we say thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. As I've explained in the past, the incident management processes in Toronto are both nimble and scalable. This is especially important as we continue to lead through challenging issues, such as PPE inventory management. To date, and throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the City has been providing PPE directly to respite centres, to 24-hour drop-in centres, and to each of the shelters in Toronto as part of our overall shelter system operations. Initially, daytime drop-in centres and drop-in meal programs were provided with grant funding, provided through our Shelter Support and Housing Administration team, such that they were able to source their required PPE directly, along with the other supplies that they require. Further, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, shelters that are not directly operated by the City of Toronto have continued to rely on the City for the supply and delivery of PPE for them to operate safely and effectively as well. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve, the City is receiving numerous requests for PPE from a number of our community agency partners who are providing important services to those experiencing homelessness. These services are vitally important in keeping our most vulnerable residents both safe and supported throughout this pandemic, which continues to be a top priority for us. In response to these important needs, I am pleased to advise that we will be providing PPE directly to our partner daytime drop-in centres, as well as our partner drop-in meal programs in collaboration with the Toronto Drop-In Network. Furthermore, effective immediately, the City of Toronto will be increasing the amount of PPE provided directly to the shelter providers, most notably by providing significantly increased quantities of surgical masks in response to their request. Our PPE task force, which is an important component of our Emergency Operations Centre, will be administering the supply of this PPE to our various partner agencies, in collaboration with Shelter Support and Housing Administration and Social Development, Finance and Administration. These important enhancements are possible as a direct result of the hard work and dedication of our PPE task force and the diligent and proactive leadership they are providing on all aspects of PPE management. The acquisition and management of high-quality PPE has been and continues to be a challenge throughout COVID-19, and I'm very proud of the tireless work and expertise that our EOC, PPE Task Force, and our purchasing and materials management teams are bringing to this critical issue. Our present PPE inventory levels are as follows. We have a 19-day supply of N95 respirators, a 619-day supply of surgical masks, a 262-day supply of isolation gowns, and a 25-day supply of face shields. We have now taken delivery of an additional 2.6 million surgical masks, 500 isolation gowns, and 890 face shields, which are all in the process of being evaluated and verified. Once they have been confirmed to meet our standards, these items will be added into active inventory. As we continue the transition from response to recovery, our PPE inventory management processes are evolving in order to ensure that we are continuing to identify and prepare for our future PPE needs moving forward. These are complex advanced planning exercises that are enabled by the predictive analytics capabilities of our PPE management system, which was developed in-house by our City of Toronto technology team. To that end, I would like to update you on the quantities of PPE that we presently have on order. We have placed orders for more than 500,000 N95 respirators, more than 30 million surgical masks, approximately 6,300 isolation gowns, and more than 450,000 face shields. Deliveries of these items are expected to begin next week and continue through the end of June. While we have been provided with these estimated shipping dates by our vendors, we continue to experience variability in actual shipment dates due to continuing pressure within the global PPE supply chain. As a city, we continue to provide the essential and critical services that our residents both need and rely on each and every day in Toronto. Our top priority has been and continues to be to save lives and stop the spread of COVID-19 in our city. Our never-ending commitment to PPE management on the part of our EOC is an important aspect of achieving that goal. This has and continues to be an important priority for our strategic command team and one that is reviewed daily. In closing, I remind you to continue to make toronto.ca/COVID-19 your first source of information relating to city services and all COVID-19 related information. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Pegg. Just for reporters on the line, we also have Marianne Bedard and Paul Raftis, should you have questions for them. First question is to Erica Natividad from City News. Erica, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My question is for Chief Pegg. Just touching on the situation with curbside pickup on Monday again. I know you're putting much of the onus on businesses to follow the recommendations, but there still seems to be a need for coordination or assistance from the city when it comes to those businesses that are so close together, especially downtown. They're side by side, and lines can end up intersecting with other lines. So how are you going to address that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as you heard Mayor Tory explain, our team has been hard at work at, of course, in collaboration with Toronto Public Health and our partner agencies and divisions to create a number of guidelines and recommendations for the business owners in order to ensure that they operate in compliance. Those guidelines have been produced, and if they have not been released now, they will be shortly. And I have every confidence that the material and the information that our team has put together will be valuable. Also want to thank, as Mayor Tory said as well, I want to thank all of our BIA partners for their participation in that process and the expertise that they brought. All of that combined team worked very, very hard in a very compressed amount of time to put that together, and I'm sure that that's going to be of great value.
And a question for Mayor Tory. The union representing TTC workers is calling on the city to make it mandatory for riders to wear face masks or some sort of face covering when riding public transit, especially now that there may be more people using transit. Is this something that you are considering?
This has been something that's been under continuous discussion, and I might ask Dr. Davila to comment on it as well. But suffice it to say this, we have been concerned all the way through about making sure that we have physical distancing for passengers on the TTC through maintaining higher levels of service than the ridership might dictate. The TTC itself has taken a number of steps, including the installation of shields and a number of other things, rear door boarding for passengers to protect the safety and health of the operators. And in the event that ridership changes significantly, obviously that continuous review of the subject of masks or other measures that might be taken can be and will be considered. But at the moment, we're dealing with a situation that is much as we have found it over the past few weeks, and safety and health of both the employees, the people who have operated so well for us during the pandemic, and the customers continues to be a very top priority.
Yeah, so I really don't have too much more to add to that. I think the mayor is quite right. The current situation, as we see it on the TTC, is that physical distancing can be maintained under the current conditions. But of course, this is something that always needs to be reviewed, and we will continue to review as we have over the course of the last several weeks, so that we can adjust as needed and in accordance with the best available evidence. That being said, as I mentioned in my remarks, the best way to prevent COVID-19 still remains washing your hands regularly, avoiding touching your face as much as possible, and maintaining, wherever possible, 2 meters distance or 6 feet from others.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Lucas Meyer now from News Talk 1010. Lucas?
Thank you very much for taking my question. Just to go back really quickly on the TTC question. So, Mayor, I mean, in your mind, how much more would things have to change in order for that mandated face covering to happen?
Well, first of all, I would rely in terms of any change in policy on the advice of the medical officer of health, because she's the expert with respect to the safety and the preserving the good health of our employees as well as the passengers. I will tell you, to the point where I was notified today of a couple of bus routes, literally, where ridership is up slightly, and that's even before this curbside pickup begins, that's how carefully we are monitoring all of these kinds of things. And as of the moment, when there is huge ability to produce physical distancing on TTC vehicles because of the low ridership, that is something that then causes us not to necessarily review policies that have been in place. But we're watching it very carefully, route by route, vehicle by vehicle, trend by trend, and we will sit together and discuss this again if and when things change.
And just to go back to the, this might be for Chief Pegg. I'm just wondering, I mean, you've been referencing the recommendations, but even just now, can you just kind of give us some examples, lay them out, what this is going to be, especially to, those businesses that are decide, in the downtown core. What are some of those recommendations to ensure physical distancing? Is it X number of people? Is it so many people in the store? What happens if there are a lot of people that show up? Can you just kind of lay out a few examples for us here?
Sure, Lucas. So I'll say that the recommendations are really more aimed at ensuring that the business owners and operators are aware of the public health measures that need to be protected, as opposed to being prescriptive in how they're solved. But they give advice about maintaining physical distancing. I know that there are considerations that have been discussed with the BIAs around I would say, leveraging some innovative ways, such as pre-scheduling and thinking about pre-ordering, being conscious of curbside pickup, looking at maintaining physical distancing on sidewalks, and of course controlling numbers in the stores. So really, it's just the continuation of what we've seen done so well in stores like grocery stores, where the owners have stepped up, they've put important measures in place, and it's really about making sure that the rest of our business owners and operators in the city are aware of those provisions and are prepared and equipped to implement those in their own individual establishments.
May I make one more comment on that, please, Lucas? The business people we talked to, and I was on the conference call with them today asking for and receiving their help with all of this, felt respected in the fact that we said that we knew that they knew how to manage crowds and how to manage physical distancing, because other businesses had shown this, as the chief just said. But one more request I made of them, and I do of others who may not have been on that call or heard about the results of that call, is that business people can help us a lot by not having blowout sales or other things they know, because they're smart about this, will attract large crowds of people. I think that it seems unlikely in an era of curbside pickup that that's going to happen, but I think they can help us as well, and they all indicated that that was something that they would take on board as well, that they can, not only manage crowds of people that happen to come or lineups of people, but also can avoid creating those crowds just through how they go into this very early stage. And it is a very early stage, and it's a test. It's a test of how well we can do at opening up, and I think they're going to cooperate for that reason, among many others.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Brian Passafume now from the Toronto Sun. Brian?
Good afternoon. My first question is for the mayor. You again today urged landlords to give tenants a break. Francine at the Star, Mark McAllister at City News, and now myself have all written about Marlene Cook, who the owner of the St. Lawrence Antique Market. She, myself, and I'm sure my colleagues who've written about her struggles have been told about payment deferrals and all that kind of stuff without anybody actually taking the time to understand what her problem is. She's not a vendor. She's not a tenant. She pays $18,000 a month for a license to hold a weekly event in space owned by the city. She's not interested in hearing about deferrals. She's questioning why she has to pay nearly $54,000 for the privilege of not being allowed to hold her event. She's getting the runaround here, and my question is, when is somebody from the city going to sit down with her and help work out our problem instead of telling her the same thing over and over again?
Well, I've understood from the beginning, and again, whether you call it a license or whether you call it a lease, the fact is she's making a payment for the use of some space or to operate an enterprise in that space that is owned by the city. So in that case, we are the landlord, for lack of a better expression. And I understand that she has indicated that the deferral that was offered, which was, I think, a fair offer made to others in similar circumstances, is not adequate to meet her particular financial circumstances. But I also understand that discussions with her are ongoing. And if they're not, and if people from the city have not been sitting with her and having discussions about other ways in which we could try to make sure that her business is kept viable during the period of the emergency, then I'll reach out and find out that that's not the case, and we'll get those discussions going, because I've been told that we are discussing with her other ways in which we could try and help in what is a somewhat more unique circumstance than a straightforward landlord and tenant relationship.
Okay, thanks. So my second question is for Dr. Davila. The data on the city's COVID-19 website has always been up to date, and us and the media have always been thankful for that. But for the past few weeks, the data seems to be lagging. Today, as I was waiting for the press conference to begin, the data was 2 days old. Can you explain what's changed there?
So the data shouldn't be 2 days old. We are, in fact, updating our website regularly so that you have the most current data. And we actually have aligned our reporting process to match up with the way the province is reporting their data. So that's, the most significant change that's happened as of late, other than the information system that we changed several weeks ago now in order to facilitate our ability to do case and contact management. But clearly, reporting up-to-date data and keeping the city informed as to what's happening is one of our main imperatives.
Okay, next is Matt Bingley from Global News. Go ahead, Matt.
Hi, thank you. Mayor, you've been asking people to stay home and avoid groups, and especially during the cherry blossoms. Now, we were sent photos of bylaw officers patrolling Trinity Bellwoods Park who have stopped by fences around cherry blossoms to pose with these trees that, the very same trees that they're telling people to stay away from. And I'm just wondering what you think this behavior sends, what message this behavior sends to the public who you've been asking repeatedly to make sacrifices.
Well, first of all, I think if you look at the particular photograph which has been shared with me, I think most people would accept the fact that they actually have distanced themselves from one another, whether it's exactly 6 feet, but it looks pretty close to me. And I think that's always, a photograph can always be difficult to interpret in that way too, in terms of the precise depth and so on. Having said that, I think it is important, and why they were there, well, I think they were there patrolling the park to make sure people were safe and that they were staying healthy. But having said that, we can always be mindful of the optics that these things present to people when they're seeing public officials, whether it be bylaw enforcement officers or anybody else, doing something. They might misunderstand what they're doing, but the bottom line is, that we have to make sure we set an example, and I'm sure that those involved in this and everything else are reminded of that every day, as we all are, and that's exactly what will happen.
City spokesperson Brad Ross, who's in the room with you there, said that, this was a moment of them just having a bit of levity amongst themselves in unprecedented times. Should other people who pass through the parks be given that same, leniency, or should there be sort of a conversation that you have with these bylaw officers?
Well, the fact is that if you look at the fact that about 500 tickets have been written over a period of about 7 weeks in a city of 3 million people, and based on thousands upon thousands of encounters, that's exactly what's happened. Those very same bylaw officers and police officers, and I commend them, because I think by and large they've done an excellent job at making most of what they do education and persuasion to follow the rules in the interest of public health, and I think they've done exactly that. And so in this case, as I say, I think if you look at the photograph, they were certainly making an effort. They weren't bunched together with their arms around each other, and it may well be that you have to be very careful when any kind of photograph is taken as to exactly how people interpret that, but I think that they have been conducting themselves in the carrying out of their duties in a way that has been very considerate of the residents of the City of Toronto, writing very few tickets, relatively speaking, and focusing most of their efforts on getting people to, follow the rules and be educated about the rules and be informed about the rules. And so I don't think you're going to find me being highly critical of them at this point in time. I also don't know all the facts of exactly what was happening there. It's a photograph.
Francine Copen from the Toronto Star. Go ahead, Francine.
Oh, hi. My question today is for Chief Pegg. Chief Pegg, I'm wondering what enforcement is going to look like on Monday when more businesses start opening. Are you going to be doing foot patrols? Are you going to be relying on people calling in complaints? What's that going to look like? If you could offer some details.
Sure. Thanks, Francine. So first and foremost, I would suggest that our approach to enforcement over the weekend and into the upcoming weeks won't change from what you just heard Mayor Tory explain throughout the COVID-19 circumstance, and that is we are always aimed primarily at education first. Our goal is to make sure that we're informing people, that they understand, and that we're providing the necessary information to help people stay safe and avoid to the largest extent possible the issuance of tickets or enforcement. Having said that, our enforcement teams are directly connected. I can tell you that both the Deputy City Manager Tracy Cook, who has executive oversight for municipal licensing standards, as well as Chief Saunders, are both sitting members on our strategic command team. Those are conversations and collaborations that happen on a daily basis, and those teams will continue to be engaged, as we've seen. And I don't think we'll see, I'm not anticipating any changes to the approach that's been taken in the parks or with any of the other provisions that have been put in place. We'll be there. If they independently deem that enforcement action is necessary, that is their independent authority. They'll make those decisions time and place, but I can tell you that on the daily update I get, when you look at the total number of enforcement, it amounts to less than 5% of the total interactions that are happening, and on a global scale, the number is even less than that. So I'm proud of what they do. I think our enforcement teams, both municipal licensing and standards as well as police, have a difficult job on any day. In this type of circumstance, I think it's been even more difficult, and I think they've done a fantastic job and continue to.
And a follow-up question. Have you pinpointed areas of the city where there might be more problems than others on Monday when businesses reopen in this limited way?
Nothing has come to my attention specific with respect to, I would say, a predetermined hotspot. Having said that, as we've talked about earlier this week, we have a number of our partner agencies, most notably Transportation Services, that are working on identifying potentials, and that is feeding directly into initiatives like our Curb TO program. There have been a number of installations already. I know that there are a number, I believe the number is more than 20 installations happening again today, with a significant number in the works as well. So a lot of proactive work in place in order to provide the necessary amendments, I would say, or the necessary accommodations in order to keep people safe and to provide a reasonable opportunity for people to be able to interact with the reopening businesses in a safe and effective manner, and to do that in concert with all of the overarching considerations that need to be made that include road safety and ensuring that, amongst other things, that our emergency services are able to continue to respond efficiently throughout the city. So there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of great work done on the part of Transportation Services with things like Curb TO, and I have every confidence that will make a positive impact as we move into the weekend and beyond.
Okay, final question to Beatrice Vyman from CP24. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Good afternoon. My first question is for the mayor. We heard today the news that sports teams here in the city have been given the green light from the province to resume training at their club facilities, albeit under very strict restrictions. I'm wondering, Mayor Tory, do you feel like this is premature, given people at home are also still wondering why they can't start doing some of the same things, like playing golf?
Well, I think there should be good news taken by those people who are waiting to engage in some of the activities they love to do, in that, for example, the province has said with regard to golf courses that they had 2 weeks, and 1 week of which is now expired, to get the golf courses ready. And I'm assuming that you get golf courses ready so that people can play on them if the health circumstances permit and the appropriate rules are put in place. So I think we're moving step by step, and I think it is reasonable to expect that these things will be done in some kind of an order, that there's proper notice that is given so that we can all have time to prepare for these things. And that's a major concern that I certainly have as mayor, that we are given that time to prepare for things that are going to change. And I think in the case of the professional sports teams, they're asking to make very limited, under very strict conditions, use of their practice facilities. I don't think all of them are necessarily going to do it. We chose as governments to look at them all at once instead of having one application come in after another. And I think you'll see that the conditions under which the Raptors, who are first out, want to use their practice facility is very limited. it. It's very strictly governed. It is very much focused on public health first, and that is something that from the beginning, Massayu Jury said to me, they want to make sure they're an example of people who can follow the public health guidelines but still nonetheless get our players starting to do the things the other NBA players are doing around the league. And so I think everybody's been very responsible about this, and I think the public, I think the public will just be delighted at this sign that maybe we will see sports in some way, in some shape or form on television without fans if necessary, and that will be in the interest of public health and that it'll give people something to do. But having said that, we've been very strict, all of us, in making sure that whatever is done here complies with public health first, and I think that's exactly what will happen.
My second question is about food trucks and ice cream truck operators. We've had a couple questions from coming into our newsroom today saying that these operators are in a pinch. They're not quite sure where they fit in terms of curbside pickup, and especially because many of them, like ice cream trucks, are seasonal businesses. They're getting quite worried for their income as well. Where do they fit in here, Mayor, in this plan to reopen, and what's your message to them?
Sure. So I might take that question first. I'll have to go back with the team and confirm where that fits in respect of the current openings that have been allowed by the province. Again, it is a provincial regulation that has been adjusted to allow for this. However, clearly, at the end of the day, we are still making sure that in order to protect public health, physical distancing does need to be maintained, and I think it'll be, up to us to look at what the team has in respect of what they've looked at, what the provincial regulations allow for, and then to work with those relevant businesses to ensure that the health and safety, both of the residents and the customers of those businesses and those providing the services, are as maintained as well as possible.
My guess is, Beatrice, and just in terms of background, that they don't have a restaurant license. They have something separate that's a food truck license. It also isn't just a straightforward retail license, and therefore it may be one of those areas where we have to take a look at the question and decide how all of this applies or doesn't apply to them, because they have a separate category of licenses food trucks do.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much. That concludes today's briefing. Have a safe and physically distant weekend, and a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We'll see you Monday at 3:45.